Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report, plus browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.
Hey guys, welcome in on a very happy Friday to you. It is the Happy Hour College Football Kickoff Show powered by WagerTalk.com. Week 10 is here. We've already had football every night, really, this week. It's been great, but we've got 3 more games we want to break down for you coming up this week, and 3 great ones, too. A couple of SEC battles, a Big 12 battle, and we're going to do it, of course, with 3 of the finest at WagerTalk.com, including our good friend Adam Trigger in the house. And Trig, what is going on, man? You've been locked and loaded with your brother from a different mother here, Mr. Bryan Power, all week, man. Talk to us about what's going on and what do you got ready to roll at WagerTalk?
Yeah, listen, Joe, I could come on here and complain about UTEP, but I'm not going to do that because I really have had good luck in the late game sort of shenanigan department this year, but not last night because UTEP +4, it looked like it was going to be in pretty much a guaranteed cover toward the end of that game, and Rice with 30 seconds left threw a touchdown, and I took a loss there on my only play for Thursday. But Bryan Power and I have a special up. It's 2 for 1. Coming into the week, we were number 1 and number 2 in units gained for football at WagerTalk this season across college and pro, and so that's up. And if you're just seeing this now, you missed the UTEP loser. So that can only be a plus going forward. I have a 5% play in the NFL on Sunday. That will be part of the package if you get it today. And yeah, it's both of our plays for one rate for the whole weekend. Anything we play: baseball, NFL, NCAA football. I might have a Korean baseball play. You get it all with that package. So check it out. It's on both of our pages.
All right. Love it there. And so glad he wasn't going to bitch and moan about UTEP because he just did 20 minutes before the show started. Hey, Bryan Power, what's going on, man? What did you lose a bet? You got stuck with Trig? What happened here, my man? Between the both of you, though, I don't think you've lost, 3 games in the last month? You guys have been absolutely red hot. Talk to me. What's going on?
Yeah, Joe, first of all, Rice gets you one way or the other, don't they? I'll say
so
that.
True.
And on that note, it's so nice. I'm relatively still new here in the WagerTalk community. Came aboard middle of the summer, right after the All-Star break. And it's so nice, Trig reaches out. We come up together with this deal. It's so nice to get a helping hand and say, not somebody remind you of, say, a mistake you made in week 1 every week.
Oh. Nobody like that here.
Nobody would ever do that, though.
No.
So, yeah.
No, not at all. I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you check out Rice last night? I'm just going to throw that out there. Hey, bottom line is, Bryan Power also has this crazy streak going with Fridays. He comes on the Friday show, and it just, whatever he has on Fridays seems to cash out. Really got his finger on the pulse on these Friday games. So between him and Trig, opportunities to make it a real profitable Week 10. And then you mix in Mr. Tony Finn, who, whether it be NBA, college football, NFL, and even maybe 1 or 2 more baseball games here, Finn, on tap. What do you got for us heading into the weekend? Volume would be good. If the volume... that would be excellent. Heading into the weekend would be fantastic if maybe the mute button came off. All right, we can mime it. Here we go. Let me see if I can do it. Well, hi, Tony Finn. Hi, Tony Finn. Let me see. Let's see if we got.
Hi, my name is Tony. Tony Finn. Good to see you. Nice. That's good stuff. Got plays tonight. All right, good, Tony.
Thank you very much for showing up. All right, so, Finn, you work on that for the weekend. Get us some volume. We're going to start,
Rice
of course.
cut his audio, Joe. That's
Yes.
what happened.
It was not me. He ran to the bathroom and somebody stole his audio. So we're going to go SEC. We're going to go.
It was that football team from Houston, Texas. They do
That
it
damn
to
Rice
everybody.
football team screwed him up. We'll let you know, Tony, once we see the levels. Or you can reconnect, just refresh. You're good to go there. All right, good to see you. In the meantime, we're going to go Tennessee, Georgia here. And Tennessee, let's see here. 8 is what I'm seeing in the marketplace still. 65 as a total in this one. And, well, Tennessee, we've heard Josh Heupel, whether it was at UCF, nobody gives him any respect. Whether it's here at Tennessee, nobody takes this seriously. Well, he's going to have an opportunity, isn't he, to prove his worth as a #1 team in the country here, Trig. The question is, does he do it?
Well, Joe, I like Georgia here. Listen,
You're good, Tom.
the Tennessee offense has been so good, but you know what I think is going to slow them down? I think the Georgia offense. That's right, not just the Georgia defense, but the Georgia offense might slow Tennessee down because Georgia is among the top teams in the country in time of possession and total defense. And red zone defense, which is going to be key here because I do think Georgia's going to be able to score on Tennessee. And if Tennessee is not paying off those drives with touchdowns, I think they're going to fall behind in this game. A great stat from the playbook, our good friend Mark Lawrence, and there's some really good ones in there on this game. But defending national champions since 2012 are 20-0. In a game where both teams are undefeated in the regular season. So that plays here. And, you know, as far as Georgia's concerned, I just think that we've probably seen Tennessee play as good as they possibly can to this point. And I'm not saying that they're not capable of doing it here, but I think we've seen Georgia. I still think it's possible we see better from Georgia. I mean, you look at their offensive line, they should be able to push Tennessee's defensive front around. Best in the SEC in terms of offensive line, and they get 5.7 yards per carry, which is where I think ultimately they're going to be able to control this game. Extending drives, keeping Tennessee's offense off the field by moving the ball themselves. Stetson Bennett, I mean, he's not as flashy as Hooker, but he's still second in the SEC in passing and does exactly what they need him to do. I think this is going to be a game where Georgia runs the ball with success, runs the clock, keeps Tennessee's high-powered offense on the sideline, and eventually pulls away. I like the Georgia Bulldogs here, Joe. I think this is a double-digit win for them. I think Tennessee takes their first loss of the season here, and I would lay it with Georgia in this spot.
All right, laying it with Georgia here, expecting them to get it done. What do you think, Bryan Power? Is Georgia going to prove to be just too much for this Tennessee team?
Look, Joe, I'm going to be out watching this game. I'm sure a lot of people around me are going to say, who do you like? And I'm going to say, I don't know, because I don't know. This is a hard game to call for me. You know, when you take an underdog, obviously you want to have some belief that underdog is going to win the game outright. Well, on the flip side, if I'm going to lay points, I don't want to have the thought in my mind, well, the underdog could win this game outright. And I do think Tennessee can win this game. I'll save everyone the trouble of going on Twitter tomorrow because everyone is going to tell you how every book needs Georgia to save their lives because Tennessee is a very public dog, which would scare me if I had the dog, quite frankly. But I want to piggyback off some things Adam had to say that I do agree. I'm going to look at the total here, and the key is pace. Georgia plays slow, bottom 25 in tempo nationally. I assume they may try to slow it down even further than normal. Oh, by the way, they do have a pretty good defense too. Trigger hit on that as well. They're allowing just 4.6 yards per play, 4th nationally in success rate, 5th in EPA, front 7 allowing just 3.4 yards per carry. On the back end, not as strong as last year, but still the best secondary that Hendon Hooker's faced all year, and Hooker struggled against Georgia last year. He averaged just 6.6 yards per attempt. He's averaging 10.6 this season for frame of reference. And that, of course, was a 41-17 loss for the Vols last year. It's not going to be that lopsided this year, but rather than play the side, I would take a look at the total and the under, which has come down surprisingly. That caught my attention. I believe it's 64.5 as we record this now, or 65, pardon me.
65. Did I just see it move? No. Okay. So it's still. Hey, listen, it's still 65. I was going to say it just popped up in front of me. No, you're still good. Still 8s and 65s is what we are looking at. And Tony Finn, now that your volume is back, you are ready to roll here on what is going to be probably the most viewed game here of the weekend, and a lot of intrigue because the what-if game. What if Tennessee actually beats Georgia? How good are they? What do you think here, Tom? Can they win outright, if not at least cover?
Well, this Tennessee team is good. I mean, they're really good. And this Georgia team is just a little bit better. I think more than anything with Georgia, I think you guys really, my two esteemed colleagues, they covered it really well. And one of the reasons I like the under as well is if you like Georgia here, I think you like the under. And I think you like it for several reasons. One being, it's just been laid out there for you that Georgia's not going to, they're going to do everything in their power to use the play clock, play slow, they'd love to play 3 yards in a cloud of dust, wouldn't they? For 60 minutes, that would be ideal because Tennessee snaps the ball, every 2 seconds? What is it, 3 seconds? Whatever. It's crazy. So, Kent State gave Georgia some issues, didn't they? And they play a little more at tempo than the normal college football team. So, in conjunction and I guess in unison, in harmony with the rest of the crew here, if I'm in this room, Joe, I'm on Georgia. I really like Georgia from week one. So, I just haven't played them much because I don't want to lay 80 points. So.
Going to be interesting to see here. We've told you guys in the past that Tennessee, Josh Heupel, they've got this unique ability of being able to blitz guys on the road in the first half. They often are not trailing or are staying within any sort of number as a dog in the first half. Tennessee's and Josh Heupel, his teams, because they run a play every 3 seconds, tends to cover first halves on the road especially. So we'll see. It's 5.5 in the first half as well. We'll see if they can continue that trend as they get ready to take on Georgia. We got a second game. We'll head over to Big 12 quick. We'll take a look here at Texas Tech. Going to be taking on TCU, and Tech is just going to try to throw a wrench here at Sonny Dykes and company and say, I don't think so, man. Slow your roll. Can he do it is the question here. 8 I'm seeing for TCU with 68.5, 69s. Talk to me here, Trig. Where are you leaning here? Sonny Dykes continue the unbeaten streak here.
I mean, Joe, is there a more blessed team than TCU? It's just they get something goes their way on a weekly basis. Fortunately for myself, I haven't stepped in front of it yet, even though they seem to like a TCU fade just misses my card every week. And so I consider myself fortunate in that respect because a lot of these games the last few weeks were games that I was close to being on. So that makes me kind of want to jump in with Texas Tech here. And for a couple of reasons. One, you look at TCU, those last few games, they've really kind of played a gauntlet of sorts. Oklahoma, at Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. The game at West Virginia is a tough game. That's always a tough trip to Morgantown. And they've got the Longhorns of Texas coming up, which is, I don't know if it's going to be a look-ahead spot per se, because this is a pretty big game, I guess. But, Texas is obviously a bigger deal. So there could be a little look ahead there. Texas Tech is a team I like. Now, last week you saw what happened when things backfire for Texas Tech. They play a style where if they're not sort of hitting on going it for it on fourth down, or if they take chances and turn it over, they could get blown out. And that's what happened against Baylor last week. 5 turnovers, failed on fourth down twice, and it just got away from them. They lose the game 45-17. I think here I'd be willing, if I was going to bet this game, it's not on my card yet, I'd be willing to go to battle with the points, with the Texas Tech team that I know will probably pull out all the stops to win a game like this. So TCU, their value, I'm not saying TCU by any means is a bad team. I think they've been great so far this year. But if I had to bet this game, I'm going to take the points with the team that I know if it's 4th and short, they're probably going to go for it. They're going to play right to the final whistle. And they might be able to come back and backdoor this if they are out of it. Or they might pull a Texas Tech against Texas and just win the thing outright. So Texas Tech, they could get blown out, but they could also win this thing. I think I'd take the points if I was getting involved in this game.
All right, Lane. I mean, listen, that was a little bit of a misleading final there, Bryan Power. 4 turnovers against Baylor made that game seem way worse than what it was in the final score. So and maybe that's helping us get over a touchdown here. What do you think?
Well, this is weird. I'm going to say a lot of the same things you just heard from
for Christ's
Trig
sake.
there.
Let me start that over. Texas Tech, TCU, Brian, what do you think?
No, okay. So Trig's absolutely right. TCU has been very lucky this year. 5 times in the last 6 games, they've been involved in a 1-score game going to the 4th quarter. Hey, give them credit. They're still undefeated. But we talked about it last week, Joe, with Oklahoma State being in a similar situation, running the Big 12, gauntlet. When does all those close games, does that catch up to you? TCU has had a bye in the midst of those 6 games, so they're not quite as beat up as Oklahoma State was going into Kansas State last week. But nonetheless, 5 times in the last 6 games, it's been 1 score in the 4th quarter. And I also joked last week, this is another lucky thing for TCU. Had they been conspiring with the New York Jets and a little bit of midweek voodoo, because the amount of backup quarterbacks these 2 teams play, whether you're talking about the Jets, the NFL, or TCU, here in the college game, is just unreal. Oklahoma loses Dylan Gabriel when they come to Fort Worth. Kansas did not have Jalen Daniels. Spencer Sanders was banged up by the time OK State and TCU go to overtime. Kansas State uses 3 different quarterbacks when they face the Horned Frogs. And the 3rd one threw an interception and turned the game. JT Daniels of West Virginia last week, he makes it the whole way, right? And West Virginia should have covered that game. But what happens at the end? TCU puts the ball up. They get a really disgusting cover. So TCU, to me, is living on borrowed time. Do they lose this game? No, probably not. I think they're going to be an underdog, and a deserved underdog in Austin next week. Texas, I still consider them actually the best team in the Big 12, despite some of the close losses. Just people want to put that in their file and think about it for a later date. But
that's right.
Yeah, or they can smoke it too. And feel free to do that too. Hey, who knows? Good stuff. But speaking of smoking it, Joe, Texas Tech,
Tony
they
Finn.
like to go fast.
No? Oh, sorry.
Yes, Tony Finn. But I'll kick it. Tony, I'll kick it to you in a second. I'm sorry. We teed you up there. Lit you up.
Can you hand it to me, please? Just hand it to me right now.
Yeah, here you go. Let's pass it. Here, let me pass it. Which way am I pass? I can't figure this
Puff
thing
and
out.
pass. Let's
Anyway.
go here, Power. Let's go.
Okay.
Puff and pass. Guys,
Texas
finish
Tech.
your thought
All right,
on Tech. Finish it.
Look, I'll try to finish fast. Texas Tech plays fast. Second fastest team in the country. They're averaging 3 plays per minute, Joe. My goodness. And I love the aggressiveness on 4th down. Trig referenced that. I would absolutely play Texas Tech plus the points. I actually have this as a free play up on my page. So if you got lost in my rambling there and would just like to read the analysis in written form, just head on over to my page. It's there for you.
I love it, though. All right, Puff and pass. Tony Finn, they've had a turnover problem. They've had a rotating quarterback problem at Texas Tech. If they cut the turnovers down, are they a live dog here?
Well, if some butts and candy and nuts, then we'd all have virtual smokeouts right now, I guess, or something like that. Here's the deal. Listen, you guys, if anyone in this room right now, this virtual smoked out room, says that they've never experienced this, then they're lying. And that is this. When I looked at this line, my first thought was, this line's wrong. It's wrong. It's not right. Because Texas Tech, to depend on, we're in the business of putting ourselves in a high probability situation. Just sometimes we may not even have that feeling. We may have a bad feeling, a good feeling, a gut feeling, gas, whatever the case may be. We try to put everything in our corner that we can to give ourselves the best chance. tell me something. Everything, in my opinion, and what I've seen, my eyeballs, my trip handicapping, every single thing has to go right for Texas Tech to win this game or stay within a touchdown. Everything, and on top of that, I think some things really have to go wrong for TCU. And I'm not a big fan of TCU, just like these guys have said. When I see lines like this, guys, I don't know what you guys do, but typically I either I dig back in and do some due diligence, or as I've said many times, and Joe will have heard me say it, I turn and run screaming like a little girl, because I want nothing to do with it, because something's off. It may not be true, but it's off in my orbit, and it happens quite often. At least like every other week, I see a line and said, I'm done with it. I'm not even going to look at it. It's just how I feel. Listen, you're right. Texas Tech turns the ball over too much. It depends on what Texas Tech team shows up. If the good one shows up, Joe, listen, they can play with anybody. They got two huge backs that help play tempo, and I don't know, Duke. This guy has got 5 rabbit's foots in his pockets, because I think he's been pretty fortunate. These guys covered this game pretty well. We got one, I think, on Texas Tech. I can't remember now whether Trey was on Texas, was on TCU, but I'm on no one. And if I'm on somebody, it's definitely TCU, because of the way I described how I felt about what would need to transpire for Tech to be a part of this game.
And we get through all of that, and I'm feeling over is probably the best bet in the whole damn game. All right, let's go.
Hold on. Joe, I got to butt in.
It just feels like we're going to get a million points in this game.
Joe, I got to butt in.
I
got to butt in with something.
Go ahead.
Do we have video of Tony Finn seeing a line he doesn't like on his computer and just getting up and running? Because I would just love to see that. Just
when
they're about this long,
right?
When about this long, I don't like those. They're little.
No, we do have actually Tony with a line snorting, but that's a totally different video. So let's go with the final game here. Alabama taking on to LSU. He's never met a line in that case he didn't like there, Brian. I'll tell you that right now. Alabama, LSU, 13.5 is what we're looking at. 56.5 for a total. All right, you want to talk about gut check time? All right, it's gut check time here for LSU. Are they? Enough's enough, right? At this point, week 10 of the season. All right, Brian Kelly, either you got what it takes or you don't with this team. You're going to have to prove it in a big way against the Crimson Tide. So, Trig, I don't know. LSU got what it takes to hang with Alabama.
Well, I'll start with this. First, both teams come off a bye, and both teams are pretty good off a bye. Alabama 10-3 in SEC play against the spread, last 13 off a bye. LSU 5-0 against the spread, their last 5 off the bye. I think the bye is going to help Alabama a little bit more, because prior to one of the biggest sort of issues they've had this season, in my opinion, is something they can clean up, which is the penalties, right? Like 15 penalties against Texas. They had 17 penalties in the loss to Tennessee, and I think that's something that can be corrected. It's less a talent thing and more just like a maturity type thing that I think a bye week with Nick Saban and his staff will do wonders to correct. I think we already saw Alabama start to get right a little bit against Mississippi State. They pretty much wiped them out. I mean, Mississippi State scored at the very end in what was a 30-0 game that they just sort of added a touchdown at the end. So I think I have a feeling you missed your chance to bet against Alabama. I think that has passed. That was earlier in the season. Now, I did a video with Dave Koken yesterday on this game. It's probably floating around out there right now. And I had sort of made a case like, it may be too many points for LSU or, to lay with Alabama. And he made the point back that I very much agree with. What about Alabama in the first half? And I said, you know what, Dave, you're 100% right, because this LSU team has dug themselves a few holes this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. I mean, you go back and look at LSU this season. They went down to Florida State. They started off a little sketchy against Florida in a game they won. They were down, I think, by 11 to Ole Miss and came back and won that game easily. and they went down against Tennessee, and it was all she wrote against the Vols. So if you're looking, I think in a tough game to call against the number, which is on the higher side, because I'm still not sure that this is a top 5 sort of Alabama team that we're used to seeing. I do think Alabama in the first half would be the way to play Alabama here. LSU, they have offensive line issues, and I think the Bama pass rush might get home a little bit. So I'm going to piggyback the legend, Dave Koken, who we did it, like I said, there's a video floating around where he talked about the same thing. But I think the best way to go is Alabama in the first half, because I just don't feel like laying the 2 touchdowns. But I think they could come out quick, and there's a precedence for that happening from LSU's opponents so far this year.
So we got, it's a huge game from the fact that the winner is going to have the ability to take the West Division title here, Tony, Finn. Both coming off a bye, like you said, which I find fascinating with these 2 head coaches. Something going to give. What is it here? What do you think we get?
I agree with Trig and a couple of the variables he threw at you, and that was the fact is that I think if you're going to be a team like LSU, that's still, they're still. I know it's late in the season, not early, but I still think this team under first-year head coach, they really don't know exactly who they are. I'm not a believer, guys. I don't know. I was Joe. I think I was sitting with the great Teddy Covers and the legend Gabe Morency, and we were at a bar, a resort bar, casino, just sitting at the bar playing some Keno and talking. And this game was on. If you remember when this game was on, week 1, LSU was playing Florida, I think it was.
Florida State. Yep.
And I posted, and I think most of you might have read. I posted, I've forgotten how bad Jaden Daniels can be at times. I remember watching him several times last year when he was at Arizona State. And I just had forgotten how miserable and how bad and clumsy and unprepared he can look at times. This team has put up almost 50 points, 45 points and more in each of the last 2 games, right? They look like they could throw. If you're going to beat Bama, you're going to beat Bama throwing on them. It is in Baton Rouge, so the spirit, the ghosts of LSU's past, present, and future will be there. But I can't do it. I can't do it mostly because of Jaden Daniels. Secondly, because I'm not a huge believer in the coaching staff there. And thirdly, everybody gives Alabama their best shot. Every play, every huddle, every down, every second of the shot clock, every second of the play clock. And, Saban, they take it on the chin. And while he's not the best loser, he's not the worst loser. And I don't see this Alabama team losing to anyone in this conference again, if it's not Georgia or Tennessee. So I think you got to be Alabama here, or I think you're probably on the wrong side, and you're on the side that doesn't have the highest likely or the most probability of winning and covering. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, it's Jaden Daniels is the kind of quarterback that has been known in the past to give Saban some issues, although I do think he's been crushed like almost 30 times this year, sack-wise. So good luck with that, Jaden. Should be an awful lot of fun here. All 3 games, though, we just talked about should be an awful lot of fun. Certainly think these guys laid it out for you pretty well. There are some edges to be had in these games, but is there an edge that these guys like a little bit more than the rest? We'll talk some best bets here. Give these guys an opportunity here to lay out a game, either one of these 3 or one off the board. And Rice is off the plate there. Sorry, Rob can't use them here on this one. So, Trig, kick it off for us here, my man. What game you going to tell us about?
Joe, I like the Georgia Bulldogs. If the 4 of us were at a cocktail party, the next day we might be a little sluggish, but not the Georgia Bulldogs, who have won 15 straight post the cocktail party with Florida. And that's just one of many reasons I like Georgia here. I think they're going to slow this game down considerably, and I don't think that does Tennessee any favors, but who rely on sort of that shootout, keep their offense on the field, type game, kind of like you saw them play against Alabama. I don't think Georgia allows that. They're one of the nation's leaders in time of possession. They also have an elite defense, and specifically an elite red zone defense. And if Tennessee can't finish drives off in this game, Joe, I don't think they're going to be in this game very long. I actually do think this is a low number. I would have made this number closer to 10. I think it will be competitive for a while, but Georgia, their ability to run the ball, 5.7 yards per carry behind an elite offensive line, will eventually be too much. So I will lay the 8 points here, Joe. I like the Georgia Bulldogs. I expect them to win this by 2 scores.
Get her done, Georgia. Getting her done, says Trig. How about it, Bryan Power? What are you thinking, man? What's your best bet for us?
Well, first of all, I don't know if it was the earlier conversation or not, but I apparently got skipped over in the rotation, so to speak, in that Alabama-LSU game. I'll just make this really quick.
Did I really? I'm so
it's all right.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't have as much to say, but look,
I'm sorry. Completely forgot.
You don't have to apologize, Joe. You've always been so kind through the weeks and months.
All right, in that case, we'll move on.
Really quick.
All right, guys.
No,
He's
hey, hold on a second here. Okay. Over the last decade, except the year that LSU won the national championship led by Joe Burrow, 2019, here's how many points they've scored against Alabama. 14, 17, 0, 10, 0, 16, 13, 17, and 17. Not a lot of scoring, Joe. Kind of like AC Green in the 80s there, man. But I think the team total, on my board here, it says 20.5. So you may want to look at the under on the team total for LSU against Bama. Maybe the under for the full game, too. Not a lot of explosiveness out of the Alabama offense this year. But let's go to the best bet here. I am looking at a different game this week. There is probably no chance this will be as good as the best bet was last week with Kansas State, but let's try Virginia. I'm taking them plus the 7. Time to hold our noses again, Joe. You know, worst thing that can happen when you hold your nose is your nose hurts a little bit at the end of the day. And for what it's worth, I'm 2-0 this season taking Virginia as a client play. They were 2 horrible games to watch against Syracuse and Georgia Tech, but they got the cash. North Carolina is 4-0 on the road this year, but those 4 wins have been by a total of 15 points against App State, Georgia State, Miami, and Duke. None by more than 7 points. I know Drake May's really good, but so is Virginia's pass defense. I think they can keep them in this game, and North Carolina's defense is terrible. 538 yards per game on the road. They gave up 61 to App State, in case you forgot early in the season. Have they improved somewhat since that game? Yeah, I suppose, but Brennan Armstrong, can we finally get going? I think this is the game maybe to do it. Virginia's got a better defense. I don't think North Carolina's the number 17 team in the country. That's just stop it. And Virginia last week, of all the teams that lost across college football, none had a higher post-game win expectancy than they did at 81%. Really gave it away to Miami. 14-12 loss in 4 overtimes. But hey, on the bright side, if you only give up 14 points, Joe, in 4 overtimes, I'll take you with the points. This is, after all, the South's oldest rivalry. So my best bet on the show, Virginia plus 7 at home against North Carolina.
Love that play. Loved it when it was 9, 8.5, 8.
Yeah.
7.5. Loved it all week at those numbers. Those were fantastic. Talk to me here, Tony Finn. Did I pass anybody else? No, we good? All right, great. Tony Finn, you're up, my man. Where are we going here?
We're going to go to Notre Dame Stadium.
Ooh.
A pretty high-profile game, a night game at Notre Dame Stadium. The Fighting Irish and the Crimson Tigers. And it seems like, I want to talk about this game forever and ever because I want to hear you guys after we're through, if we can, about it. Just seems like to me Notre Dame continues to get really a ton of paper across the counter on them, not only supporting them with greenbacks, but major portals to continue to talk highly of this team. And I'm not impressed, haven't been impressed with this team at all. Not one little bit. You mentioned that was already mentioned. North Carolina is not a great team. Listen, Sweeney and the ACC and Clemson, this whole conference has been down. So maybe last year's season that Clemson had moved them back, but Clemson's still in that same container and that folder with the Georgias and the Alabamas. They had a down season. DU, not Miami, but DJU. right? Having a better season. I think a lot was expected of this guy, a lot more than should have. And it all goes back to a game he played that he lost, if you remember, a couple, 3 years ago against Notre Dame. A high scoring when he really became, he had taken over for the great the GOAT that now quarterbacks for the Jaguars. In a long story, making it a little shorter, Dave Clawson took this team to basically to the end of the fourth and overtimes, 2 of them, and almost came away with the win. And poor Dave Clawson, after the game, if you watched him, you saw the quotes by him, or at least taught him speak. He said, my kids are dying in the locker room. It's not his kids as much as Dave Clawson, because Dave Clawson can't beat Sweeney, and he can't beat Clemson. He's lost 100 times in a row to this team. You can't run on Clemson. Nobody's run on Clemson except for Miami, okay? And if you're going to beat Clemson, you're going to beat them through the air. Remember this, it's supposed to be a little bit wet. Could be 30-mile-an-hour gusts of wind out in that part of the country on Saturday night. It's supposed to be over by Saturday night. We all know, if you've lived in the Midwest, you all know that if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. It's going to change. So we're not certain, but I know this, and that is the NFL players that are on the front line for Clemson. Notre Dame's not running the football. And the new kid at quarterback, completing less than 50% of his passes the last 3 weeks, hasn't looked very good. He had a bad game against Syracuse last week, and DJU had the bad game 2 weeks ago. Clemson, off a bye, goes into Notre Dame Stadium and puts it to the Irish this weekend and reclaims kind of that hierarchy on the East Coast.
30-mile-an-hour wind gust, 50-mile-per-hour at a top end with some rain, and it's going to be like that all day. Kickoff, 7 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark there.
Right.
The wind advisory is good through 9 p.m. as of an hour ago. So if they can't throw, going to be real interesting to see what happens with the total in that game there. Best bets, guys, Virginia, 7, says Bryan Power. Take it against North Carolina. Georgia laying 8, getting it done against Tennessee, says Trigg. And you just heard Tony Finn tell you, yep, going to be a long evening for Notre Dame there as Clemson comes to town and runs all over them. And don't forget, guys, of course, you heard Trigg and Bryan Power tell you 2 for 1, I believe. Opportunity galore for these guys here right now with their best bets locked and loaded. Tony Finn ready to go here, guys, in this week 10 of the college football season. Don't forget NFL plays as well as NBA, NHL, all sorts of fun stuff this weekend, and we'll all be getting ready for college basketball next week. So now would be a good time for you to hop on board with those 3-day, 7-day, and 30-day all-access packages. Never worry about getting every best bet from these guys across all the sports delivered immediately. It's all about getting the best of the number, guys. You don't have to worry about that with those all-access packages. So there you go. College football should be a hell of a weekend here, week 10. On behalf of Trigg, Bryan Power, Tony Finn, guys, we appreciate you hanging. Make sure you hit the bell in the upper right-hand corner. Subscribe here on YouTube. Download the new WagerTalk TV app. And come back and join us again next week as we get ready for week 11 of the college football season. Until then, best of luck with all your plays, guys. We'll talk to you again next week. Good luck.
Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet On It, and the Opening Line Report. Plus, browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.